What's up, everyone? It's John Carter, host of Rarely Sophisticated. I'm joined here in the studio with my boy Ryan Bredeweg. Say what's up.
What's going on, everybody?
Today we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to a lot of y'all's hearts. We're going to be talking about the fantasy football.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I guess first of all, since this is your first go around on the podcast, we'll just let you do a little introduction about yourself.
There's not really much to introduce. 31-year-old guy, live right down the road from you.
Love
married, 2 kids.
You have 2 little girls just like me.
Yeah, it's a handful.
Yeah, most definitely a handful.
But other than that, no, work every day, come home, try to enjoy the family.
Try to enjoy some sports.
And sports.
Well, let's go ahead and go over a little bit of current events. I'll cover Major League Baseball since, don't really care much for baseball, but
let's go with that all.
Okay.
Don't care with that.
And then you can talk about Thursday night's game between the Chiefs and the Denver Broncos.
We'll give it a shot.
Okay. So we got the MLB postseason going on right now. We're looking at a Lone Star State series for the ALCS. You've got the Texas Rangers versus the Houston Astros. Go Rangers. I am not an Astros fan by any means. Then we're looking at Arizona and Philadelphia in an NLCS playoff with Corbin Carroll, possibly this year's National League Rookie of the Year. So let's go over the Kansas City, because I have thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
No, you start. You're the main guy. I'm just here. So
What are your thoughts? You could be the permanent co-host.
Well, you're right, but
to the show.
Where are your thoughts on where Kansas City is right now? They looked kind of pitiful with how Denver played.
I think Mahomes needs more utility. I think that Travis Kelce is his only true weapon that he's got right now. I think we need to see more depth in the wide receiver category. Sky Moore, Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is going to come out. I do believe that. I do believe that he's going to become the next Tyreek on that team. I don't know, man. I think that Travis Kelce's their only real weapon right now. Patrick Mahomes looked like he was really struggling to find any other open receivers. I mean, how many times did he get the ball down in the red zone and they couldn't score and capitalize on it? Like 3 or 4. I mean, you just can't have that and expect to have good games.
Well, let's also start with Denver's defense. Actually looked like the defense from last year that they played. They were a phenomenal defense last year.
I guess they hit the reboot button or something.
And that's funny because they got rid of a lot of their new signed guys that they had the last couple of years. Like Frank Clark, they just let go yesterday. So, I don't know. Like, Denver hit some kind of reset button from the 70 burger that they got put on them from Miami just a couple weeks ago.
I mean, they were humiliated. I mean, wouldn't you do something if you were humiliated like that?
Yeah, and I love how Sean Payton called out Nathaniel Hackett's abysmal coaching job last year, and he's still 1-4.
Well, and plus you're talking about maybe Jerry Jeudy going somewhere else.
Oh, he's definitely getting traded.
I mean, he was at one point in time their shining star, and now he's
just the guy.
Just a guy.
Just like Steve Smith said.
Just like Steve Smith.
But I don't know. I honestly think the Chiefs are going to be fine, even with their current wide receivers. Like you said, Rashee Rice, he went 4 for 72 yards. He went 4 targets, 4 catches. He doesn't get enough playing time because he's a rookie. So they're trying to ease him into that offense. They need Kadarius Toney to be the Kadarius Toney we all think he can be. MVS just kind of disappears in the offense right now. Kelce is their one shining light. As long as they have Travis, that offense moves. And
he just runs Kelce routes.
Yeah. And I love how that's an actual thing.
That's an actual term, guys. It's called a Kelce route. Speaking of which, let's talk about Travis Kelce and the elephant in the room.
Well, what's the elephant?
About her being there.
That's how I knew she was playing before he became questionable for fantasy. I was like, oh, Taylor's going. Kelsey's.
Oh, no. I'm talking about Mama Kelce.
Mama Kelce?
Mama Kelce was there. That by far was the best part of
Mama Kelsey's been at a lot of their games.
Yeah, but okay, so for those of you who didn't watch the game, it was on Amazon Prime. And they had this whole fake news broadcast about, is she there? Is she there? She's the best thing. She really made Travis like a superstar, blah, blah, blah. And of course they're playing on the whole Taylor Swift thing. And then at the very end of it, it's like Mama Kelce, and she's like, of course I'm going to be there. I love my son. And so, like,
that was the greatest commercial ever.
absolutely. I think the fact that the NFL is like, okay, we have this thing, we have to figure out how to troll our fans and make fun of it, but yet acknowledge that, yes, she is bringing a lot of fans in. But, dude, last year during the Super Bowl, Mama Kelsey being there, I thought that was the greatest thing in the world.
Well, and let's also admit, like, Taylor is bringing a lot of eyes to the sport currently because all the Swifties.
I think we need to bring some knowledge to those Swifties.
Well, that's why No Dumb Questions is on Travis and Jason's podcast. They're answering a lot of dumb questions, but they got to educate somehow.
I mean, good for them. And they have the platform to do it, which, who knows, maybe one day we will have that platform.
Potentially.
So, all right. Is there any other current events with sports you really want to talk about right now?
Oh, football is the only real big thing. Other than Dion lost today, that's kind of sad.
They were up 29-0 going into halftime, and then
something like that. It was,
and then they dropped a 29-point lead and lost in double overtime.
Yeah, 46-43 was the final score.
Yeah, Shador had 5 touchdowns.
He threw for 5 touchdowns. He did throw an interception in one of the overtimes, I believe. 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah, he threw the interception. That's what let them get down the field and score that field goal. So,
other than that, there's nothing really relevant going on right now other than what just happened on Thursday and what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. Which kind of brings us into our next topic. We're going to talk about fantasy sports, and for those of you guys there, and so basically what fantasy sports are is you get a bunch of folks together and you draft every player or the best players that are in a league. And we're specifically going to talk about football, I think, here in this episode, but there's a ton of different types of fantasy sports out there. You got football, baseball, hockey, basketball, all that stuff. But for the sake of this podcast today, we're solely going to talk about football. So essentially, you draft players based upon your needs. So in our league, 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, and 2 flex positions that can be either a running back, a tight end, or a wide receiver. This is your first year.
Who's going to win this weekend?
Ann and I are both playing each other this weekend. And going into the week on Thursday, it was pretty well 50-50, I would say.
It was close.
And
it should have been a close weekend.
Yeah, it should have.
We'll see how tomorrow winds up.
So every position player has a way that they score points. Wide receivers and tight ends, every time they catch the ball, they get a point. Plus, they get a 1/10 of a point for every yard they gain. So if they run 10 yards down the field after they get a reception, they get 2 points, 1 point for the reception, and then 1 point for 10 yards. If they go down 50 yards, that's 6 points because you get 5 points for the yardage, and then you get 1 point for the reception. Running backs is based off of sole yards and touchdowns. Quarterbacks are based off yardage and touchdowns. I don't think they get anything for the amount of completions that they throw. And then, of course, you got defense, special teams, stuff like that. Patrick Mahomes, I think, was projected to get 26 points through an interception, which is -2 points in our league. But he threw for over 300 yards, and again, 3 or 4 drives down into the red zone and then could not capitalize on it and put the ball in the end zone. I think the only time Patrick Mahomes threw was to Sky Moore.
I don't remember who scored that touchdown. It was either Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney.
So now I think it's strong projections in Ryan's favor just because my quarterback and my running back did not perform very well at all. Jarek McKinnon had a 40-yard run that got brought back with a flag on the play, and I sent a message to Ryan. I was just like, God damn it. And he's just like, yeah, I knew you'd be mad about that one.
Well, and let's admit your running backs are the abysmal. Other than
I'm in running back hell right now. So, anyways, I don't know if I really want to put out this connotation, this analogy, but fantasy football is kind of like the first virtual reality. If you really want to break it down, because everything that you do is dependent on what a real life player is doing. So your computer football team, whatever, is all dependent on what a real life player does. If they don't play that game, you don't get points.
Yeah, that screwed me last week.
Yeah. Ryan is my lexicon of football. He pretty well knows everything that's going on in the real world when it comes to football.
All right, he's building me up way too much.
I'm just saying. And Ryan has not done fantasy football ever in his 31 years of life until this year. So let's talk about that experience. What made you decide to do fantasy football?
You and our neighbor have a league, and you guys have been in a league for a long time, and you guys had somebody drop out of the league, and it was going to be mid-year last year, but they ended up finishing.
Yeah, we let them finish the year out.
Since he finished the year out, Tyler asked me to join. I'm like, I'll give it a shot. No idea. And for the first 3 weeks, it was going great.
Yeah, you were undefeated.
I was undefeated, had the most points in the league. Last couple weeks have been rough. Last week I should have won, even though the guy I played had 50 on Thursday night from DJ Moore.
Well, I mean, he would have beat you if he would have started Justin Fields, but that's a sore subject for another day, I think.
Yeah, he doesn't want to listen to this podcast because he's starting Justin Fields this week, though.
Let's not alienate our viewers.
He is starting Justin Fields.
Well, good for him. He should. So, why do you think people play fantasy football? I want to ask you this, and then I'm going to kind of chime in with my own thoughts and opinions.
Well, I think I've enjoyed it more for talking and like meeting a new group of people, like that also have similar interests of sports. Like I think fantasy football is kind of a uniter, because like just like sports is, because you're bringing a bunch of people that have the same interests but different backgrounds.
And I feel like at least in our league, I feel like there's a lot of alpha types in our league, and I think that actually makes for a more exciting experience. Like I'm not saying that everybody that plays fantasy needs to be an alpha type, but I think that at least in our situation, I think it makes it more interesting. I think between you and some other folks in our league, and I'm not gonna name drop anybody until they come on the podcast and give permission to name drop them. So, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a couple.
There's a couple of salesmen in there who think that, their team's gold, your team's shit. And so, them giving up a third string player for your starter is a good trade. And if you don't take it, fuck you.
Hey, you got to remember who's going to listen to this podcast right now.
I'm not throwing any names out there, man. There could be a million people out there like that. Nobody in our league, surely not.
Let's just admit that the guy that tried to get Travis Kelce before you traded him to me, still salty that I got Travis Kelce and he didn't. He thought there was some kind of C word, like collusion, that we were not going to let him have Kelce.
We can talk about collusion on a later date, but I think that's a word that a lot of people use and they don't truly know the meaning of the word. So, I think that people get into fantasy football, because they would rather do fantasy football than Dungeons and Dragons. and just hear me out on this, okay? So Dungeons and Dragons, probably one of the oldest tabletop RPG playing games, and you can pretend that you're a warlock or a ranger or knight or a princess or whatever, and you go out and you fight and stuff like that. I know this because I have played D&D. Let's just be open and honest and call it what it is. I have played D&D before, so I kind of know a little bit of what I'm talking about here.
Nerd.
So I think it's another experience along those lines, but it's not what people would quote unquote call nerdy, because it is sports related. But you throw a quarterback in because you think he's going to have a good game, or you throw that one wide receiver in because they're going against a really weak receiving defense or something like that. I don't know. I see it as kind of the same strategy as like Dungeons and Dragons, or like a Dungeons and Dragons-esque game, in a sense.
I don't know if I agree. I've never played Dungeons. I idea what that game is. I know what it is, just never played it. So yes, you're a nerd, but that's fine. I'm a nerd in a different way.
We're all nerds.
Yes, but I mean, there is a lot of analytics and stuff that go into fantasy football. I mean, that's all it is. It's sports analytics.
It's Moneyball.
Yes.
It's absolutely Moneyball. And trying to play it like Moneyball, and I think I'm playing it a little bit too much with emotion this year. But
I feel like that's how a lot of people play fantasy football.
yeah,
They get really high on certain people, who you draft, where you drafted them, and then all of a sudden that person has a couple bad games or something like that, and then it's just like the world's burning down, everything's ending. It's the worst thing in the world. So I don't think, I mean, you can't let your emotions drive you through life. So you can't,
you got to try to keep a level head.
yeah. So same thing with fantasy football. If you let your emotions drive you, which I've tried to take advantage of some people in our league with their emotions, trying to get certain players really, really cheap. Didn't work, but I took a shot because how they've already voiced their opinions on certain players. And
You've only been playing fantasy football for like half a season, not even half a season, and you already sound like a master manipulator.
I mean, that's all fantasy football is.
Okay, fair enough. What do you think about fantasy football being what I will call the part of the triple crown of pseudo underground gambling? Think about it like this: you have fantasy football office pools, you have Super Bowl squares, and then you have March Madness brackets.
Oh, they're all in the same. They're all
in
together.
that same category where it's like it's a fun version of gambling, and it's not like you're just throwing down on a money line or trying to cover a spread.
No, there's a lot of competition in all those, but it's all, you're all basing what happens in those, especially March Madness, off kids playing a sport.
Yeah, off real players playing a sport.
Yes, I mean that's what fantasy
Except
football
for
is.
I guess Super Bowl squares, because that's kind of randomized. But other than that, it's kind of, you have more input into the chances of you winning based upon the outcome of the real world results. We're not playing cow pasture bingo here, where we're out waiting for a cow to take a dump on a square and then you win the honey baked ham and take it home.
Did you do that when you were growing up?
I'm from Kentucky. Of course we did that.
No, we'll leave the Kentucky slander for a later date as well.
I appreciate that.
There's a lot.
Trust me, I've heard it all. So, any other things you want to talk about in regards to fantasy football before we do what I would call like our favorite fantasy football team names that we've come across? And a lot of these are not suitable for work. So if you're listening to this at work, disclaimer.
They're all suitable for work.
I don't know, man. Some of them aren't. At least the ones on my list.
It'll be fine. I don't have a list. You told me to prepare. I just came down. I was like, hey, these are great. But no, fantasy football's fun. Just don't
Are you pulling these from Pinterest?
I don't have Pinterest.
No, but your wife does. So did
Yes.
Did your wife pull these for you from Pinterest?
No, she did not.
Okay.
But she is on Pinterest way too much.
I'm sure my wife is, but whatever.
You just
Love you, babe.
don't know. But no, fantasy's fun. Don't let your emotions get too. I mean, just like life, don't let your emotions get too high, too low, just because your fake team you assembled about real people is doing bad. Yes, most people put money on it. Most people, there's a pot at the end of the season to win or lose whatever you bought in. It's still just a game. You're playing with a bunch of people you probably know. So enjoy it. Enjoy the camaraderie. Enjoy the people. And just have fun with it, because that's what it's really meant for, not to gamble your whole life away with
No. If you go into fantasy football, and even if it's a money league, if you go into fantasy football expecting that to put your kids through college, you're looking at the wrong avenue of approach.
There are some money leagues allegedly out there at like car dealerships that they base it off what commission they make, and then they're buying thousands of dollars probably. So you're probably winning, allegedly. Heard stories.
I want to know more about these stories on a later date when we're not, on the gun with the microphone. So yeah, we're gonna go over some of our favorite fantasy football team names, and then I tell you what, at the end we'll kind of say what our fantasy football team names are for our respective league. Kind of use that as an outro.
You can start,
Okay.
because a couple we have Has
A
to.
couple that we have are fantastic.
Your team name is mid, but it can be on the list.
Okay. Fuck you, man. Fuck you. I came up with that team name and I thought it was great. Like, I did not pull that from a Pinterest, a fucking Reddit, nothing. I came up with that one on my own.
Well, when the people in our league probably listen to your podcast, we can get a result in the group chat we have and see if they think RoboCup is.
Whoa. Way to name drop it out there before I even had a chance to, my friend.
It'll be fine.
I might bleep that out. Who knows? First, I got to figure out how to bleep shit out on a podcast. But
yeah, we'll see. I doubt it'll be bleeped, so.
Maybe. All right. So number one that really caught my attention was Kittle's Bits.
Kittle's Bits.
Kittle's Bits.
It's not bad.
No, I like it. I mean, I don't like the picture that they have on the site because it's literally just a picture of George Kittle's junk.
I mean, that is Kittle's Bits,
hey,
though.
He had a great game last week, though. So, all right, what do you got?
Baskin Dobbins.
Baskin Dobbins. Okay.
Kind of like it. It's still hard to beat, though, like the Catalina wine mixin'.
Okay.
Because who doesn't love Step Brothers?
Exactly.
Catalina wine mixin', if you have Joe Mixon on your team.
Yeah.
Greatest team name for that team.
Here's one. Kamara Up and See Me Sometime.
Not bad.
Not bad. It's not great, but.
And this would be a great team name if this guy was actually relevant in football, because he is not playing a whole lot on the Seahawks. But sorry, Smith Jackson for Jackson Smith and Jigba.
That's
That's a phenomenal name.
Cold. Chris Carson of a bitch.
I'm not a fan.
Okay.
April showers brings Zay flowers. That is adorable.
That is cute.
It couldn't be any better.
2 girlies, 1 cup.
Nobody wants to think about that video ever again, and you bring it up. Really? And if you haven't seen the video,
don't watch it.
Don't watch it.
No.
Terrible.
Nightmare fuel.
How I Met Calf Your Mother.
Okay. Okay. Landry's Nuts.
Finding Debo.
I did it for the nuke.
Who's that referencing?
That is referencing DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay.
What else you got?
Devontae's Inferno. And he's been
like that.
freaking hot this year.
I like
anyway,
that. That is hot.
gold.
No pun intended. That is hot. Hanging with Hernandez. Is that too dark?
Getting there. That's getting on the edgier side.
I mean, it's pretty dark. I'm almost like on the dark web of fantasy football names here that I'm looking through. So maybe we should just cover the 3 that we have here.
My favorite one is still, if you have CJ Stroud, that dude's been phenomenal this year. Stroudy with a chance of deep balls is fantastic.
Yeah. So if you have CJ Stroud on your team, strongly consider changing your name to Stroudy with a chance of deep balls. Because
I mean, he goes balls deep on those freaking defenses anyway, so it definitely fits.
Yes. Probably a good contender for Rookie of the Year.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Bijan would be the only other one that I can see really, because he's
and Richardson's been hurt too much, and that's just not, I don't think, possibility anymore.
Yeah, I think right now Rookie of the Year is either CJ Stroud or Bijan, and it's probably going to lead Stroud just because he's a quarterback. But Bijan, how he moves is unhuman.
Yeah,
if he's hurt,
a freak of nature, dude.
If he gets hurt, it's not going to be because somebody hit him. It's because something gave out in his body.
We've had this conversation before. If he gets hurt, it's because he snapped his ankle the way that he just jukes the way that he does.
Oh, and those overhead shots of the game, they should have came out.
He looks like a pinball.
They should have came out with those years ago. That is how he moves. Not like he looks. And I hate to make that comparison. Adrian Peterson-ish. How he moves-ish. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer like AP is.
I mean, if he continues to play the way he's been playing, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
He's a rookie, so let's not talk about it too much.
Yeah,
but
let's not jinx him.
He moves so different than most running backs in the game right now.
I can't argue with that. The only person that maybe would even be competition would be Christian McCaffrey, and I don't even think that that's a 100% like one for one.
No, CMC's he is the
I think he's
clear
more
best.
brute force. I think CMC's more brute force. Bijan's more agile, find the hole and exploit it.
I'd say their game's similar though. Like he avoids a lot of the bigger hits. I mean, he did just jump over a guy a couple weeks ago. So I mean, I don't know. I I love CMC. He's phenomenal. I'm so glad he's healthy because when he plays football, it's always electric. But I have Bijan Robinson on my fantasy team, which it's just a fake team with real people on it. So much fun watching him run. He's my favorite running back and by far in the NFL right now. And there's a lot of
I mean, I can't argue with that. I really can't. So I'm going to go ahead and let you name drop your team name that you came up with.
Well, I have to Infinity and Bijan because he's going to carry me through this season.
Yeah, and we talked about it. If you had Tua,
it would be Tua Infinity and Bijan,
which is
a great fantasy.
Yeah, that's
because Tua wasn't drafted in a lot of leagues. I would assume.
No. And I think a lot of that had to do with last year and his concussion protocol twice.
Hey, jiu-jitsu, man. He did jiu-jitsu over the offseason, and he doesn't take those shots anymore.
No,
so.
and good for him. I mean, he's had a great season.
Well, yeah,
Well, I mean, when you also have targets like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
When you have a track team out there running routes, and then you have a rookie that come in that's probably the second fastest guy in the NFL and maybe the third fastest guy behind Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. When you have a track team and that all you got to do is throw the ball to them, which is a big deal because these are all NFL athletes. But they are the fastest. They have the fastest team in the NFL. Just send them to the Olympics next year and let them run the 4x1 because they'll probably win.
I think if the Dolphins, if they continue on the path that they're on, they'll bring another Super Bowl to Miami here before long.
Miami has a Super Bowl?
I thought they did.
It just made you question everything.
You did. I know Dan Marino does not have a Super Bowl, but I thought Dan Marino
does not.
I thought Miami as a team did. All right, so while Ryan is looking this up, I'll go ahead and name drop my team name. My team name is RoboCup, and mostly, again, because I'm a nerd, so I really like RoboCop. And I have Cooper Kupp on my team, so it just made sense.
Oh, well, they do have they have one Super Bowl. You were right.
Yeah.
But it's the only, they have two Super Bowls.
Okay.
But it was the undefeated, Miami Dolphins were the undefeated team. So they're the only 0-17 team ever.
Right.
So yes, they have two Super Bowls in 73 and 74.
I knew something you didn't know, and that is a great way to end this episode.
Well, you didn't know because I just made a question.
I had a feeling.
Asking a question.
I had a feeling.
Did you know when their undefeated season was?
No, I did not. And again, I knew that Dan Marino did not have a Super Bowl because that's common knowledge. But I was like 99% sure that Miami had a Super Bowl because I think when the Colts won the Super Bowl back in 2007, and I saw their ring, it was on like some kind of page and it showed like all the rings throughout history for every team, like what they got. And so I was just scrolling all the way back through it because back when Baltimore, when they were the Colts and they won Super Bowl III and they got the ring, I wanted to look at all that stuff. So that's, I believe, where in the back of my smooth brain that I remembered it being.
Oh, I knew they had a Super Bowl because they're still the only undefeated team in the league. I just wondered if you knew they had a Super Bowl. I wanted you to question everything.
You make me question my entire life sometimes. I don't know why we're friends.
That's what good friends do.
It is what good friends do. I love you, buddy. All right, so we're gonna call that an episode. We're gonna go ahead and ask you that if you have social media, you want to follow us on social media, you can check us out on Instagram at Rarely Sophisticated, or if you're on the Twitter, the X, whatever you want to call it, whatever Elon Musk decides to change his name to. Next week, you can follow us at RS Podcast X. That's at RS Podcast X. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at rarelysophisticated, if I can even say the name of the damn show, rarelysophisticated@gmail.com. We'd love to know what you think, ideas for episodes, if you like what you hear between me and Ryan, if you want us to talk more about certain things, less about others, or if you just want to say hi. And then, of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast, and join us next Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central, because we'll be dropping another episode. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Peace.
Later, everybody.